How'd you find yourself in this field, and how'd you get started in real estate and find yourself doing asset management?
So I started out, I've been doing this a variety of asset management my whole career. That's been since before 1989. But I started with a large life insurance company, and we managed the risk mostly. But what they did, they had $1 billion of commercial mortgages a year operation nationwide, and then they had about 3 or 4 billion owned across the nation. And we kind of were in a matrix environment, and we kind of plugged ourselves into the teams per region. So I remember going to the West Coast one month and going to the East Coast the next month, and, do the on the ground work, and then plugging into the teams under one roof that covered the nation. So it was really a, how can you say, a lot. So what it was just plugging into a team that needed your expertise and guidance because they were all about lending, and they may not have known what the asset or the collateral was or the market conditions was. So we were to set them up for success and make sure that they could pull it off because we were they had less experience than us, but we had more specialized knowledge, and they justified. We had a whole group of them of professionals, mostly engineers and architects and so forth. And my specialty was construction management at the time, cost engineering, putting together cost estimates. And but we had environmental people, we had HVAC people, we had construction management, contractual people, and so we set up straight underwriters, straight finance people with the nuances of owning, let's say, an office building or a shopping center in Boston and getting them set up for success. And there's a lot of pitfalls and a lot of traps out there that somebody not knowing the terrain, we got them so that people would who had eyes and ears locally who would work for us and watch it while we were back in the home office, so to speak. So we had a big chalkboard, we were across the nation. Most outfits work regionally, let's say the southeast or in their city or metro area. So that's more specialized. But I've worked across the nation, and each market has its own story, its own particular set of risks, and we just were had the experience and knew what to look out for. But there's a lot of things that, how can you say, construction wise, property management wise, anybody who worked for a fee, there's human behavior behind that, and it's easy to see how they're going to behave based on their agreement. So we manage those folks as consultants, as service providers to the deal, and we put together, how can you say, the contractual agreements and made sure that we met with them and we had a connection with them and that they were working on our behalf, working for us instead of against us, if that makes sense. Anybody in real estate tends to know that you need to be careful if you're an absentee owner. So we facilitated that absentee across country type distance gap.
Yeah, it definitely requires a tight team. You can find yourself in a tight spot if you don't have that nailed down. And from a family standpoint, I never personally, I know people who do it successfully. I just the economics I never really found worthwhile. Multifamily, it's easy because it's a business. Um,
Mhm.
how are assets managers? How are they typically like in across? There's a lot of different. I mean, you can have an asset manager in pretty much any type of asset class, but what sticking with like multifamily, like residential, multifamily, single family, how are they typically compensated?
So right now, the industry standard is that an owner or a portfolio owner would hire an asset manager. Their going rate would go anywhere between 90K a year to 200K a year with benefits, depending on experience. So there has to be a certain amount of critical mass in order to make that work. And then the asset managers have to extract the value, make sure that the assets are performing and that the performers are cash flowing and that the investors are getting their cash. So
Okay.
we become the eyes and the ears, and we take the load off the owners. And we are kind of the glue that brings together the property management teams, the construction teams, and all the consultants involved, and get overlap and provide backup for underwriting, for accounting, and property management. So it's multifaceted. It comes down to foreseeing and getting out in front of the risk, because once you get into this business, you realize there are a few risk components that you need to be wary of. So a lot of it is you can learn on the job through experience. A lot of it is just knowing the numbers and having a good solid financial modeling, construction background. So I've touched on a lot of different facets there. So I guess the more value you can bring to your owner, the more value you are. So that's what I'm doing is becoming a freelance asset manager and doing it on a fractional basis, talking to owners where they don't have to pay the full yearly cost or hire someone, but they can hire me on a fractional basis, like on a 2 month basis, project basis, by the hour. We'd like you to work on this for 6 months, train our team so we're better at it, and then we can take it from there.
Is that
So
like
I work
based
on
on
a variety.
like a percentage of GCI or?
It really depends because everybody's asset is in different states of ownership. Let's say they're in development and lease up. They just close on it and they have to implement a value add plan. Well, things get pretty hands-on and pretty busy. So if it is something that is they have 10 properties that they bought, they're all 90% occupied, they're cash flowing. We just want to make sure that it continues on that way, meets budget.
Yeah,
That's a different set of things. So there's a life cycle component to understanding where you fit and what you're going to perform. So obviously one is different than the other and more time involved. So it comes down to an hourly basis basically.
yeah.
But
I just know.
or
I mean,
what
I see how it's charged to investors in syndications and funds, and now, of course, the fund manager or the operator. They then typically have staff that they're paying to do this. So it's now there could be a spread. I don't know. It depends on the asset and the game plan.